Oh, hello. Hello, my friends. It is I, Nook, of the book. Yes, I apologize. I've not been myself recently. No. I'm currently going around with the Nightsky Syndicate. They found me on the space station, research station Epsilon. Yes, it was quite nice, and then they took me aboard the little damselfly, the flirty filly, and then after that they took me onto their ship Glint, and I got to say that Glint is a very good ship. He reminds me of an old spelljammer I once knew. It was a living ship, not a small jammer like Glint, but it was still a good ship. Now, I apologize for my voice and for my lack of energy. Apparently, I have a flap of skin behind one of my ears that is slowly healing. Apparently, when I was stabbed, one of the men who came, I believe it was Roma. I'm not entirely sure, but since it is not something dealing with swords or stabbing, I would think that the third one would be the one who would do it. And it felt like all my energy was being transferred to an outside body. Now, I learned from our friends, the Nightsky Syndicate, that apparently the whole thing was being siphoned to the orange bastard. Yes, and that he was able to come back from being sliced, diced, and julienne fried. But he survived, and luckily, Teros was able to stop him using Swift End. Swift Beginnings is not one of those that likes to really do much. He will do the bare minimum, but he will come out in a pinch. Now the rest of the group is out of this room. I am currently in Kaor's room. It's very nice. Though when they left, they all seemed very upset. And I think I know why. I've seen this before. My brother Kerr, the Deke. He must have gotten in their dreams and requested an alliance. I'm glad they did not take it. Though I could see it truly hurt them to go through it. As soon as my energy is back up, I will help them by placing runes around to stop my brother from interfering with them. Though that may be for naught, for I've learned that they are going to garden. I am no shape to go after my brother now. But if we go and visit Garden, I could see my Daggy. Hold her in my arms. Tell her I love her. And apologize to her father and her mother, and her brothers and sisters and cousins, all of them, that I got her mixed up in all of this. Though knowing my Daggy, she'd punch me in the arm and tell me that quit being a sentimental old fool. And I'd tell her, oh Daggy, I am a sentimental old fool. Though to get my mind off this, I believe I will tell you all a story. Now, this story is one that is actually quite long, and might actually be 2 parts. That is, if I remember it correctly. We know about a lot of the crew, and I will not give you the main crew's backstories. That's up for them to tell them. I will, however, give you some of the crew. I've given you Bernie, so now I will give you another. Rott Fang. Now, Rott Fang was not born Rott Fang. No, that's a name he earned. He was born in wild space, aboard a vessel commanded by a very, very tough orc captain. His mother was his first mate, and his father was the second mate. Everything would have been fine if it wasn't for the fact that the first mate was actually married to the captain, and once the captain found out, well, the captain threw the 3 of them overboard. Now, out of sheer love for his wife, he gave them a ship, a longboat, and some food and provisions. See, I'm very, very tired, very weak. It's hard for me to speak. But he gave them provisions, enough that they could make it to the next planet. Now, the next planet to them, since they were in the uncharted territories, it was not known to be a spell-jamming planet. It was a groundling planet. But luckily for them, it was a lush jungle planet with no real large predators. When they landed, the first mate, her name, well, she's no longer around. No real reason to dig her into the ground. So I will use the name that she went by while on the ship. First mate Stabbykins. Yes, or Stabbykins for short. The second mate, his name was Rigel. Now, Rigel had loved Stabbykins from the very beginning. And when they were alone, he called her his little Stabby, even though, of course, she was 3 feet taller than him. Yes, he was short for an orc, but, you know, that's okay. Love is a grand thing. So, when they landed, they foraged, they found food, meat, and they raised their son. They named him Dominus, which, if you look into the old texts, is actually a very old orcish word. Back right after the Unhuman Wars, Domina means to dominate, and he was seen to be the one that would overtake and bring honor back to their home. Domina grew into a man quite fast. Granted, orcs live not entirely long lives, but Domina was different. He was a Skrull. Skrull themselves, they are very tough, but they are smarter and they live longer. Mostly because they're smarter. They're not usually just headlong into battle, me crush. No. So, they lived there for 10 years with no contact. Domina learned to fight from his mother. He learned to pilot a spelljammer from his father. And one day, as they were working outside. A spell-jamming ship landed. Oh, a stone's throw away from their habitat. Stabbykins and Rigel went to the ship, and there they found a group of pirates. So, knowing that pirates, they steal shit, so why don't we steal their shit? So they went and grabbed their son Dominar, and they got onto the ship and flew away. Once they were back into orbit, they found there was quite a bit of jewels and medical supplies and food on board. So they took off and went to the nearest Skrull base. There, they introduced their son, Dominar, and enrolled him into the Skrull Navy. First, of course, there was boot camp, which he dominated. He then got a listing on a ship as just a crew member. He took everyone's shit until one day he couldn't take it enough, and he grabbed one of the older sailors by his tusks and threw him around the room. When he actually looked down at his hands, he noticed one of the sailor's tusks came off. It was quite rotten. And everyone laughed, including the one that he had thrown. And they called him Fang. See, that's where he got his name. In fact, the one that broke his tusk in that fight became fast friends with Fang. And they told him, you will never go by the name that you had before. Your name is now Fang. Now Fang liked this because it ingratiated him with the crew. For Dominar was the bastard son of an infidelity. Fang was an honorable warrior and sailor. He continued on, working as a Skrull. He grew in rank, a regular crewmate, regular sailor, up to a commander, and after a commander a sergeant, and so on and so forth, but he never wanted to take the captaincy. He saw what it did to others. Besides, when they asked him to do so, he told them, I am just a soldier. I am not worthy. Through his campaigns, he saw much pain and suffering. And he brought much pain and suffering. For you see, Fang and his group would go to planets that were marked by the Skrull for invasion, and they would enslave the populace. Now, when Fang was young, in his 20s, early 30s, he thought this great fun. I mean, what's better for an orc than to go out and fight and take what's in their mind, what's rightfully theirs? I mean, that's what all orcs truly want. But remember, Fang wasn't an orc. He was a Skrull. The Skrull was smarter. One raid they did was on a outpost run by elves and centaurs. And this is the reason why Fang went to everybody and apologized. This station, it was an asteroid that was colonized by centaurs and elves. Now, the elves had a small navy that was around there, part of the Elven Armada. But since they were so remote, they did not have a massive force. This station was primarily to research the sphere they were in. See, the sphere was a sphere known as Creep Sphere. Creep Sphere was a very interesting sphere, for the planets did not have a standard orbit around their sun. They would creep along and take moons from other planets. It's almost like this was a game between planets. Now, the planets themselves, it was never found to be that if they were actually truly sentient beings, but they acted like sentient beings. They would steal, they would grow jealous. The asteroid that the elves were on was far enough away from any planet, and small enough that no one really paid any attention to them. Which is the downfall of them. Fang was one of the first shock troopers that went down. And as his men, because at that time he was in command of those men, as his men swarmed the domiciles, he saw children running. Elf, human, centaur. He stopped in his tracks, for he had believed that this place was primarily a outpost that did not have families. And when he hesitated, his commanding officer asked him, "Why are you stopping?" And Fang said, "These are children. There's no honor in killing children. There's honor in killing warriors. There's no honor in children." His commander smacked him as hard as he could with the blunt portion of his sword. When Fang got back up, his commander stood over him. "You will do as I command, or I will use the sharp end of my sword." Fang knew he could not take on his commanding officer. So he lifted his sword and began to stalk the survivors. If you ask Fang about this now, he will say that he did not cry. He did not blubber as he was massacring the people. But he did. Every swipe of his sword, he said, "I'm sorry." Every stab into a body, he would say, "I'm sorry." When they had finished, the commanding officers realized that they were wrong. The station that they had gone to was not the station they were supposed to hit. It was a station where the families lived. Fang, upon hearing this, became enraged. He went to his commander, his eyes bloodshot, his heart jackhammering in his chest. He said, "You told me we were taking out these beings because this was for the honor of the Scroll. I killed children, mothers, fathers. For what?" His commanding officer looked at him, very calmly said, "For the honor of the Scroll Empire." Now, if you ask Fang what he did here, he doesn't know. But, being who I am, I know. He'll go to his grave, not knowing what happened in that half hour. But, Fang, upon hearing this, grabbed his commander and crushed his skull. Not quickly, no, slowly. And while he did so, the commander reached back and grabbed for any weapon he could, and he found a small letter opener. What, it would probably be about the size of a short sword for a hobbit or a halfling, or... Are those things the same thing? I don't know. Depends on who you're talking to, but... Excuse me. But, he kept jabbing it into Rott Fang's arms, but Rott Fang, his arms were dense, ropey, and he was in a state that he did not care about pain. He took it. And when all was said and done, the commander fell back into his chair, his head a ruined mess, and Rott Fang, still in his murderous rage, went after the next in command. This is why I said half an hour. He didn't come back to until he was standing over the captain. His heart, the captain's still beating heart, in his hand. He was covered in blood. He gazed around him, looked at himself. He was covered in wounds, stab wounds, bullet wounds, everything. He did not care. He knew that if, after this, the Scrow decided to kill him, to execute him, at least he was able to take out the ones that ordered him. But when they were found by a Scrow, it was a modified Scrow battleship, it looked like a giant scorpion with 2 stingers. When they were found, Rott Fang gave himself up. And the captain patted him on the shoulder and told him, "You did what was right, Captain." Rott Fang did not want to be a captain, but if he had to be subject to orders such as what was given by their captain, he realized he could no longer be just a soldier. He needed to be more. So, he took the captaincy, took the ship. Now, he did not get off unscathed out of this, of course. He was, at that point, given nothing but suicide missions for his crew. But, remember, Scrow, very smart man, Rott Fang was. He planned the best way around all of their engagements. If they were sent to fight a elven armada, that 1 ship versus 10, he came back. The other side may have lost 9 ships. They didn't lose their 1. When he would go to a planet and told, "Take it for the Scrow," he would send down investigators, and he had personally chosen these men to go down and listen and find out if this truly was the planet they were supposed to go after. Only then would they continue the fight. Now, Rott Fang grew older. Like I said, they don't live terribly long, but Rott Fang himself was getting older, and he, at this point, was at the level of an admiral. He was now giving orders. Though the orders he did receive, which he found once he was an admiral, but before he became a captain, he found that many of their sorties, before he became captain, were done on planets not in honor of the Scroll Empire, but for the sheer pleasure of his captain, they went to a GIF training yard, young GIF, and they slaughtered them all. Now, Fang did not question this in the beginning, not when he was a soldier. No, he did not question it because the young GIF, though very young, fought valiantly. In fact, the last one to fall under his sword wounded him grievously. The last thing the GIF said was, "You think you could kill me? I'll see you in hell." And Fang, not knowing truly what hell was, drove the sword down. He was proud of that moment. He had taken on a GIF warrior on his own. Now that he was an admiral and had access to all the logs, he was ashamed. He purposely made them go after weak targets. What was even worse is he found later that most of the crew knew this. They didn't care. It was easy. But he didn't want easy. He wanted honor. He continued to fight. Though at this point, since he was part of the Admiralty, he had many underneath his command. And he made sure that any target they went after truly would be a target worth fighting for. Now, those in the Admiralty that knew of Fang, of his morals, wanted him out. So, to gain some sway with the pirate gang, they waited until Fang was asleep, then drugged him, tied him up, chained him up, and him and 5 others were given to the Soul Swallowers and Trinity Tenfold. Trinity Tenfold, as she normally did, would starve them for several days, maybe weeks, just to see who was the strongest. Fang, seeing the others that were with him, others that had raised their voices against the Admiralty, against the Skrull armadas and their need to kill beyond what was necessary. So he decided to do what he could. Anytime they were fed, he squilled away some food, so that when the others were on the brink, he would take what he had saved and gave it to them. He barely ate, barely drank, and it wasn't until a month and a half later where he had started out his Admiralty. Granted, he was at this point 98 years old. He was old, but he was not feeble. Still strong. Still in his prime. When they came for him, they were going to just toss him away. Too old, too weak. So they went after one of the men that were with him. They say a mother bear is most dangerous when you go after their cubs. A captain is most dangerous when you go after their crew. Fang leapt up, grabbed the snake man and ripped his head off his shoulders. He then went after the next jailer, grabbing his weapon and driving it into the snake man's gullet, splitting him open. He called to the other prisoners, saying, "We will get out of here. We will fight. We will live." And so he and the prisoners, there was about 15 in there, humans, elves, orcs, scroll, there was even one gnome. They picked up arms and made their way around the hideout, killing any that they saw that would discover them. It wasn't until they got to where they would put their, well, you would call it a hangar, or a dock, and they found themselves a spelljammer to leave with. Trinity Tenfold had watched them do all this, and just as they entered the spelljammer, they were ambushed. Out of the 15 that were there, 5 survived. Rott, Fang, the gnome, who was known as Pete, whatever you want to call me, you can call me whatever you want. Richard the Strong, a human barbarian. Leaf Lister, a elf, wood elf. And a young woman. This young woman was an Aparusa who was actually sent there to find out what was happening with Trinity Tenfold. When she was turned, a messenger was sent to Grandfather Yasu, and he was told, "You've lost one of your flock." Rott Fang was taken before Trinity Tenfold. He was fighting the gods that held him. They had cut off his hands and feet, staunched the wounds, dressed them so he could not grab a sword, he could not run, could barely crawl. Trinity leaned down to him and whispered silently, so that only he could hear. "You are strong. I will add you to my warriors." And she bit into him, filling his body with an extra dose of her mutagenic venom. His transformation took a year. Now you're probably saying, wait a minute. Wasn't he a Lithid beforehand? This is where things get murky. You see, at one point, he found the antidote and took it. However, this was because he was allowed to. He had kept enough of his brain that time to look for a way out. But unbeknownst to him, Trinity had a deal with a group of Illithids. She would give some of her snake people over so they could do things to them, see if they could make a more powerful Illithid. And so, as soon as he got the draft, he downed it. But inside was not the cure. It was a tadpole in a brine that would quicken its displacement of Rott Fang. Now, as you all know, a tadpole, when it goes inside someone, it will eat upon the brain and then replace it. This tadpole had not been able to eat the whole brain. You see, it got to a certain point where the will of the Rott Fang stopped it and pushed it from destroying him 100%. Now, though he was no longer in control of his body, he witnessed everything that happened. The atrocities that his new illithid body had achieved. This was a new hell for him. This went on for a very long time. Until when the illithid were done, he was included in a trade with Trinity Tenfold for more slaves. When he was taken over, the illithid inside him, well, the illithid that was him, gave themselves freely to Trinity Tenfold, and because of this, when they used the venom that she had used on everyone, his mind then just became dormant. The tadpole changed, reformed, and became the brain of the lizard person. It was able to hold on to a little bit of itself, but not enough to keep itself from doing the bidding of Trinity Tenfold. No. His mind dormant, asleep, no longer able to see or hear or taste or feel anything. It wasn't until a bold glint that he came back to himself. For as you remember, Johann had made an antidote, and he had survived long enough to take it. And when he came to, he was himself again. Side effect of the cure was that it would renew the cells to an earlier point, and that had changed him back to his late 20s. No one would know who he was. It had been over 100 years since Rott Fang was a household name amongst the Scroll Armada. A kitty got on the ship. How'd you get on the ship? Don't worry, I won't tell Captain Deros. No, I won't. But you gotta be quiet. You gotta be quiet. If Captain Teros finds out. Wait a minute, kitty. I know what you are. You're not a kitty. Well, you are a kitty. But you are a cub. I know who you are. You're Bandit. Hello, Bandit. Are you taking care of Teros? He's good little dread tiger. I forgot that you were on here. Well, anyways. As you know, once he came back to himself. Yes, I'm telling a story. Once he came back to himself, he realized there was time for him to hopefully right the wrongs that he had caused. Not many people get a second chance like this. No, they don't. But it's not that he got a second chance. It's that what he will do with it that matters. Now, I did gloss over a few things in his time, which I will revisit at a later time. It's just right now I am very tired. I have expended a lot of energy into the orange bastard. And that was probably why I wasn't healing the way I was. I don't like feeling this way. I don't like feeling powerless. It reminds me of the beginning. The cur would kill me over and over again. Only to the point that I could regenerate. I was seen as nothing by him. A plaything. I was weak then. I did not know my strength. Though I will say, I did not know my strength for eons. My strength comes from those that I love and love me. It's okay, little kitty. I miss my daddy. When this is over, and I pray that it is done soon. But when this is over, I just want to go back home. Raise our child together. Be happy for as long as we can. I know I'll probably be here forever. My Daggy won't. I've been thinking she would. She's not immortal. This means I have to spend as much as I can with her. As soon as we get to Garden, I'm going to take her in my arms and tell her I will never leave your side again. Oh, they said they've just opened the portal. Oh no. Oh, Garden is on fire. Daggy, goodbye.